I have a question for you. What would you do if someone that you loved fell to the floor and was completely unresponsive? And they just stopped responding. Because if it happens, having the ability to check if they have a pulse or not could potentially save their life. As a registered nurse, I have the knowledge and the skills to check pulses, and I want to share that with all of you because that's a really important skill that could save somebody's life one day. So first, I want to talk about why being able to check a pulse is important. Then, I'm going to demonstrate the method and the locations for checking pulses for your average everyday person that is not medically trained. And finally, I'm going to talk about what to do after you check for a pulse, because that's equally as important as being able to check for a pulse. So, let's get started. In an emergency situation, if someone is unresponsive, one of the first things that you should do is to see if they have a pulse. It's really important because identifying whether or not they have a pulse could indicate if they still have cardiac function or peripheral circulation. And if they don't have a pulse, then that just indicates that they could be in a cardiac arrest. And a cardiac arrest ultimately could result in their death if you don't resuscitate them or somebody doesn't resuscitate them quickly. So, in order to show you how to do this, I have my friend Swimsuit Ken here to demonstrate how to check for a pulse. According to MayoClinic.org and the American Heart Association, there's two main areas that the average everyday person should be able to feel for a pulse. And those are the carotid and the radial arteries. And these, according to, again, these sources, these are the two easiest points to locate a pulse without specific medical training, so theoretically, anyone should be able to do it. The carotid artery are the ones on the side of the neck, just below the jawline, and to the side of the windpipe, and the radial arteries are on the inner wrist, just below the thumb. So like right below that thumb on the inside of the wrist. To check for the pulse in one of those locations, all you have to do is take two fingers and put them on that point and feel if there's any kind of pulsation. And if you do feel pulsations, that's great. And if you don't, well, then you need to do more stuff. So after you realize that the person does not have a pulse, if there's not a pulse present, your number one priority needs to be calling 911. And then, if you're trained to do so, start CPR. And if you're not trained to do so, hopefully somebody around you is trained and get them on board. Until the first responders arrive, it's really important that you stay with that person and don't leave their side and call for more help if someone's available. And once the first responders do arrive, it's critical that you give specific details about what happened, including what the person was doing before they became unresponsive, and what you've already done up until the point that the first responders arrive. So, in conclusion, in an emergency situation when someone is unresponsive, like my friend Ken here, checking for a pulse could save their life. And you can check for pulses by feeling the 2 points that I described earlier, which are the carotid artery, just under the neck, and the radial artery, which is just below the thumb. And after you check for a pulse, if there's not one present, it's really important to call 911 and don't leave them by themselves. Stay right by their side. With this new skill, you have the ability to save somebody's life, and I'm hoping that you utilize the skill that I've shared with you today in case something does happen and you need to save somebody's life. You have the opportunity to be that lifesaver.